Alright, so what if you always wanted to buy the 70mai A810, the 4K STARVIS-2 dashcam from 70mai, but always thought that it's slightly higher than your budget range and it's a bit pricey for your liking? Well, I think that problem gets solved as of today. 70mai has launched a new camera called the 70mai A510, which gives you close to 4K quality at nearly half the price of what the A810 comes at. So this is the dash camera which all of you guys have been waiting for a long time, a STARVIS-2 dual channel combo at a price of less than 15,000 rupees. I have been testing out this dash cam extensively from the past week, and it's safe to say I'm quite impressed with the kind of video quality the A510 provides. I think this dashcam fills a crucial space in one of the most important price segments in the dashcam market, and this is going to pave the way for other manufacturers to bring more value for money dashcams in the lower price bracket segments, ultimately benefiting the consumers. So I'm pretty convinced that by the time you finish watching this video, you'll just want to go ahead and buy this dash camera for your car. And just in case if that's true, the link to purchase it is given in the description below. So here's presenting the ultimate everything you need to know video about the 70mai A510 to help you in deciding if this is the right dash camera for you. You're watching Travel Tech, let's get started. So the 70mai A510 comes as a much needed and much awaited update to the 70mai A500. The A500 by itself was a pioneer in its segment, and of course the A510 definitely takes it up a notch. So let's start up with a quick unboxing of the 70mai A510 and follow it up by showing you all the details of this camera which you need to know before you make that purchase decision. Let's take a look. Alright, so finally here's the upgraded version of the 70mai A500 dashcam, the newly released 70mai A510. So this is a dual channel camera. It has the STARVIS-2 sensor. You get this picture of this dashcam pretty much similar to what the A500 looked like. So on the bottom it highlights some features such as this has 1944p resolution with HDR. It has Sony STARVIS-2 IMX675 sensor and it supports dual channel recording. On the other side, it says it supports parking surveillance, it has built-in GPS and ADAS, and of course it gets 70mai app control. On the back, there are some features highlighted such as the resolution. It says it supports 2592 into 1944p resolution. The battery capacity is 500 mAh. The lens has a field of view of 138 degrees with an aperture size of f1.8. So these are the things on the box. So I'm very excited to take a look at this dashcam, which is definitely going to create a new trend in the Indian dashcam market scenario. You get basically 4 electrostatic stickers, 2 for the rear camera and 2 for the front camera. That's cool. You also get a user manual, 1 for the front and 1 for the rear camera. Also along with that you get 2 space stickers, 1 for the front and 1 for the rear camera. So here is the 70mai A510. Very similar, or should I say exactly the same as the 70mai A500, only the model number has changed along with some really cool features such as the STARVIS-2 sensor. But what I can definitely say is I think the build quality has been improved. It feels and looks much premium and better than the previous model. You get this 70mai branding on the left, you get the lens on the right, you have this windshield mount right on top along with some ventilation holes. You get this microphone on one side, LED indicator right behind the camera lens module. At the back you get your regular size display with 4 button controls. On the bottom you have the power button along with the ventilation holes. On the other side you get this rear camera AV in port, a Type-C port for the power and a micro SD card slot. On the front this is probably the speaker module. So a very standard and a neat looking dashcam, pretty much similar to the 70mai A500. Taking a look now at the rear camera. So a very similar looking design of the rear camera from 70mai, and of course this is 360 degree rotatable. It has a lot of ventilation holes on the back. On one side you get this glossy finish. On the other side you have the rear camera cable pre-attached along with a 4-pin connector at one end. You also get this windshield mount with a sticker pre-attached to it. So a pretty standard rear camera, again similar to what you get in the 70mai A500. If we open up the box further down, you get the windshield mount with the sticker pre-attached. So this windshield mount plugs onto the dash cam and you just have to slide it into place for it to fit it on the dash cam and later on onto the windshield. Then you have the 12-volt car charger, a standard car charger from 70mai with 2 USB ports. Following that, you get a wiring tool or a wiring crowbar, and I think they have improved the design a bit. Now it's much thinner and sleeker compared to the previous ones. Following this, you have the front camera power cable with a Type-C port at one end and a Type-A port at the other end. Then as the last item in the box, you get the rear camera power cable with a 4-pin connector for the rear camera at one end and a USB connector which plugs in into the front camera. So these are things which you get inside the box: 2 user guides, one for the front and the rear camera, 4 electrostatic stickers, 2 for the front and 2 for the rear. You get 1 space sticker for the front and 1 space sticker for the rear camera. You get this 12-volt car charger, you get the main dash camera, that is the A510, you get the rear camera module pre-attached with a 4-pin connector, the rear camera power cable, a wiring crowbar and a front camera power cable. So here are some of the important technical specifications you should know about the 70mai A510. The front camera supports a resolution of 2592 into 1944p with an aspect ratio of 4:3. Along with that, it also supports 2560 into 1440p at an aspect ratio of 16:9. The rear camera has a standard 1920 into 1080 at a 25 frames per second. The front camera supports HDR recording and along with that supports the STARVIS-2 IMX675 sensor. The rear camera has a GC2503 sensor. The front camera also gets a field of view of 140 degrees and the rear camera gets a field of view of 130 degrees. The front camera has a 2-inch IPS display. The front camera has an aperture of f1.8 and the rear camera has an aperture of f2.0. The display of this dashcam supports both the single view and a picture-in-picture display as well. This dash camera also supports 4G connectivity, but currently it's not supported in India. It has a 500 mAh battery and along with that supports dual channel recording. It has a time-lapse recording from both front and the rear cameras. It supports 24-hour parking surveillance and also supports microSD cards from a minimum of 32 GB to a maximum of 256 GB. It has built-in GPS, built-in ADAS and also supports 70mai app control. So before you actually install the dashcam, take the windshield mount and slide it in on the main dashcam module. Once that is fixed, take a compatible microSD card and insert it into the microSD card slot of the front dash camera. Peel off the sticker that's covering the display of the dashcam. Also peel off the sticker that's covering the windshield mount. Stick the dashcam onto the windshield where you want the dashcam to be mounted and press on it gently so that it adheres firmly. Remove the sticker from the lens module of the rear camera and also remove the sticker that's covering the windshield mount of the rear camera. Stick the rear camera onto the predetermined area on your rear windshield. Take the 4-pin adapters and plug it into the rear camera power cable. Insert the other end of the rear camera power cable into the front dash cam and also insert the Type-C power plug for the front dash camera. As soon as the car is powered up, the dash cam will turn on and you will need to follow some initial setup such as setting the time and date of the dashcam before actually it boots onto the main screen. Following that, you'll also need to format the memory card which is inserted inside. Just click on the format button and the dashcam will do the rest for you. Once the formatting is complete, the dashcam will show you the live view display on the screen and now the 70mai A510 is ready to use. So here's the quick overview of the 70mai app. I've currently connected the app to the A510. So on top of the screen it's giving a live view. So this is 1944p at 4:3 aspect ratio. You have the mic button, snapshot button and the flip camera button. So if I click on the flip camera, again it goes back to the reverse camera and you can view the live recording from the reverse camera as well. On the bottom you have the album section and the settings section. So let's head into the most important part, that is the settings of this dashcam. So starting with the first option, the video settings, you get the video encoding format, and if you click on that you get a high compression and a low compression ratio. Following that, you have the recording resolution and the frame rate. It says it records in 2592 1944 HDR, 2560 into 1440 HDR and a 1920 into 1080 60 frames per second. So it records full HD resolution in 60 frames per second but without HDR, and 1944 and 1440p, that's quad HD. In HDR I think it's at a 30 fps, they haven't mentioned it here. Following that, you have the video clip duration option. You can set it to a minimum of 1 minute up to a maximum of 3 minutes. Then you have something called as demisting option. I haven't seen this previously in the 70mai app. I'll have to look into what exactly this option means. Following this, you have the speed watermark. If you click on that, you can turn it on or turn it off based on your requirement. Then you have the coordinates watermark, basically the GPS timestamp and the speed timestamp. Then you have the 70mai logo timestamp, which you can enable or disable. Then you have anti-flicker 60 Hz, 55 Hz and 50 Hz. Following that, you have the mirroring and rotation option. So this is a very important option, and if you head into that particular setting, it gives you a live view of the rear camera. You can go ahead and mirror the live view horizontally, and also you can rotate it 180 degrees. So this is helpful for those people who have installed the dash cam incorrectly, specifically the rear dash cam. You can mirror it and rotate it later on. Following this, you have the parking security option, wherein you find collision detection. You can move into that particular app menu, and within this you can set the sensitivity to high, medium or low. And of course, to enable parking monitoring, you have to have installed a parking kit. Following this, you also can enable or disable the option which says that recording is triggered once collision occurs. Following it, you also have the option of collision response strategy. If you click on that, it says it responds instantly and postpone for 5 minutes followed by response. So they've justified this option by giving a note here. It says to avoid triggering parking surveillance recording due to the slamming the car door, collision incident will be responded to with 5 minutes postponed. So this means when you go out of the car and if you slam the door, the collision detection won't be activated and it will stay activated after 5 minutes of doing that. Then you have the time-lapse photography. You can turn it on or turn it off based on your requirement. Then you have the duration of parking surveillance. You can set it to a minimum of 2 hours up to 24 hours, and even you can set it to unlimited. Then you have the smart travel options, wherein you find the emergency video sensitivity. You can select if you want the dashcam to record the emergency videos or not, and of course you can set the sensitivity of the collision sensor as well. Let's head back. Then you have the ADAS option. So if you want to enable the ADAS function, you have to complete the lens calibration process so that the ADAS function can be calibrated correctly and automatically to guarantee the accuracy and timeliness of the broadcast. Then you have the sound settings, where you can turn on or turn off the initial power on and power off prompt tone. You can also set the speaker volume to low, medium or high. Then you have the key tone, you can set it to on or off, and of course you have the record audio or the mic option, which you can turn off or turn on. Following that, you have the system settings, where you have the broadcast language. Then you have the screen standby mode. This is important. You can set it to have a screensaver, you can set it to turn off completely, or you can keep the screen always on. So this is a very important option to most users. Following that, you have auto off after stop. If you click on that, it says the dashcam with continuous external power supply will automatically shut down after the vehicle is stationary for the following duration. So you can have a minimum of 5 minutes and 10 minutes up to 20 minutes. And of course you can also set the camera to not turn off entirely. At the bottom it says using the cigarette lighter vehicle charger to charge the dashcam on the vehicle, where the cigarette lighter socket continues supplying power after the vehicle is turned off. So this is a very useful and an important option to those cars whose 12-volt car socket always supplies power even after the car is turned off. So you can set the dashcam to turn off automatically once the car becomes stationary after a duration of 5 minutes up to 20 minutes. Then you have the Wi-Fi hotspot settings. Then you have the dashcam system time, date format. Let's head into that and select the proper date format. Then you have the speed unit and positioning status. So this is currently showing you the status of the GPS. Following that, you have the about section. Then in device data, you have synchronized driving route data and retrieve device logs. And lastly, you have the format memory card option and the factory reset option. Alright, so here's the first sample which I want to show you from the 70mai A510. In this example, the car in front is about a distance of 10 to 15 feet away, and the headlights of my car are put in high beam, which means the license plate of the car in front is completely covered on the glare of my headlights. And if we move in to take a closer look at the license plate, a stunning look. All the letters and numbers are clearly visible, and it's pretty easy to make out a number plate at such a close distance. But this is also possible with many other dash cameras. So what sets apart the A510 from other cameras? Let's move on and take a look. So in this specific example, the same car is now at a much farther distance, about a distance of 30 plus feet. And as you're seeing right now, the license plate of the car is very small in this particular area of the snapshot. And also do note that still the license plate of that particular car and the car itself is under the glare of my headlights. So will the STARVIS-2 sensor in this camera make a difference in the license plate readability? Let's zoom in and take a look. A brilliant image. The license plate readability is beyond question even at a distance of 30 plus feet, and under the glare of headlights. The magic of STARVIS-2 is in clear display here. The entire number plate is well readable, all letters and numbers are distinctively visible without any mashing up or blurriness. So this camera is performing really well and to the point of what's expected from this dash camera. Here's another example which I wanted to show you because most of you have been asking me about this. So I always show the number plate readability from the rear of the cars, but what about the cars that are coming towards the camera from the front? So this specific example is to show you exactly that. You can see there's a Honda City right in front and this car was moving towards me, and currently in this snapshot it's about a distance of 10 feet or more. And if we take a look at the number plate of this moving car, I can clearly make out that the rectangular shape of the number plate looks dragged in this image. That's because the car was in motion and not stationary. But in spite of being under motion and also the camera being under the glare of the headlights of this car, the number plate readability is still good. Each letter and number is pretty much clearly visible. The 1944p resolution and the STARVIS-2 combo in this camera is working to perfection. You're not going to find this kind of a number plate readability specifically from the cars which are moving towards you under the price bracket that this camera comes in. Moving on to the daytime sample, so here's a snapshot again at a close range of a Volkswagen car. So in this distance, it's about a distance of 10 feet or less maybe. Let's zoom in and take a look. A crystal clear image, more or less looks like a 4K image to me. You can even make out the IND lettering and the Volkswagen name from the car. Now I agree that this is at a very close range and there's nothing special here because most of the other cameras can also do this. But what if we notch up the distance a bit? Now as shown in the previous example, during night time, this Volkswagen car is now again at a distance of 30 feet or more. Is this camera powerful enough to read number plates at such high distance? Let's zoom in and take a look. A very decent and a usable number plate readability without any mashup or without any blurriness. Each letter and number is more or less clearly visible, and this camera again doing its job pretty well at a distance of 30 plus feet. Now do note that this kind of a number plate readability at such high distances is only possible in higher resolution such as 4K cameras, and for the fact that you're getting this in the 70mai A510 is definitely a cherry on top. Moving on to the rear camera number plate readability, so this is during daytime and you can see the car is about a distance of 10 feet just behind my car, and if you take a look at its number plate, you do see some moderate amount of noise here and there, but the overall number plate readability is still decent. Each letter and number is clearly visible. Also do note that since this is just a 1080p camera at the rear, the number plate readability will only be good at a very close range of 5 to 10 feet. More than that, the blurriness will set in and you won't be able to read number plates. Taking a look at the number plate readability during night time from the rear camera, you can see there's a Maruti Swift right behind me. I mean, this is even less than 10 feet. And if you try to take a look at its number plate, a very good read, I must say, considering this is a 1080p 25ps camera. You hardly see any noise here except for the glare of the headlights caught on the camera lens. Each letter and number is pretty much clearly visible. But this is at a very close range, and again all 1080p cameras can do this. But what about the car that's even more farther away than this particular Swift? I'm talking about that police car right behind the Swift, and it's about a distance of 25 feet or more, I should say. And if you try to take a look at its number plate, a bit blurry but still readable. That's really cool from this camera considering the fact that it's under the glare from the headlights of the Swift and the police car as well. It's still able to give out a decent read of the number plate at a distance of 20 plus feet, and that's really incredible. Of course, I can surely say that the rear camera quality is not as high as the front camera of the A510, but considering it's a lesser resolution with a lesser frame rate, it's doing its job to its optimum level and you really can't be expecting anything more from this. Moving on to the overall video quality, currently I'm showing you the front camera view, and this is at a 1944p resolution with HDR enabled. It records at 30 frames per second with about a 25,000 kbps bitrate and a 211 MB per minute of file size. The video footage looks brilliant now, doesn't it? I mean, the brightness, contrast, saturation levels look pretty much balanced, although I can say that the light balance is slightly on the higher side, but the overall video quality is still impressive and the video looks very crisp. I mean, this is the kind of video which you can use in your travel videos, in your vlogs, or even on your YouTube videos. It's that good. The overall video quality from the front camera is truly impressive and remarkable. I mean, this is the kind of footage you should be expecting from a under 15,000 budget camera. I mean, I'm quite impressed with the HDR capabilities of this camera. The colors look so punchy and real, and the crisp video makes you forget that this is actually not a 4K dashcam but rather a 3K dash camera. The video quality does stand up to the levels of 4K and pretty much usable for every or any condition you might imagine to use a dashcam footage for. Moving on to the night video quality, this camera is able to balance out the high brightness or the high exposed areas with the dull and the dark areas. I mean, since this has a STARVIS-2 sensor, along with getting a good read of the number plates, you can even make out the name plates and boards from the various buildings and the roads. So for example, you can clearly see the ICICI Bank board right in this video. If this camera didn't have a STARVIS-2, that would have been sort of a whitewashed board right there. So identifying the nearby locations in the video footage also serves as a crucial evidence, and the STARVIS-2 powered dashcam really helps in catching that particular aspect. So in this particular example, I was caught in that traffic jam and luckily I was able to move on without much further problem right there. So as you're seeing right now, even under low light conditions, the STARVIS-2 sensor is bringing a charm to this video. I mean, everything is pretty much as crisp and sharp and detailed as you would expect it to be, and there's nothing to complain from this kind of a video quality at the particular price point this camera comes in. Moving on to the rear camera video quality, so this is during daytime and this rear camera records in a 1080p Full HD resolution without HDR and at a frame rate of about 25. It has a 8000 kbps bitrate and a 62 MB per minute of file size. Now straight away you can make out that there is a drop in resolution and it loses the crispiness, the sharpness the front camera displayed. But the overall video quality, considering this is just a 1080p camera, is very usable and sufficient to serve you as evidence for any insurance claims or legal cases. I mean, it may not probably be sufficient or suitable enough to be used as your travel videos or vlog videos, but to a point of using this as a pure dashcam footage for recording your journeys and for evidence purposes, the rear camera also is more than good enough. Moving on to the nighttime video quality of the rear camera, it's still giving out a decent picture, more than enough usable. You do see some moderate amount of noise here and there, but the overall glare from the headlights which are facing towards the camera is minimal and not as drastic as some of the other rear cameras which you have seen out there. There's no major variation in the brightness, contrast and the saturation levels, but unlike the front camera which gives out a 4:3 aspect ratio for the 1944p resolution, the rear camera records in a standard 16:9 aspect ratio with a 1080p resolution at 25 fps. Moving on to the next sample, so as you can see now the front camera is recording in a 16:9 aspect ratio, and that's because you can drop down the resolution from 1944 to a 1440p resolution. Now why you might want to do that is that you can save some space on the SD card, wherein the 1944p resolution took close to 210 MB per minute. This takes about 190 MB per minute of file size, and of course this also gets HDR, which is also a bonus. Recording at a 30 frames per second, this has about 22,000 kbps of bitrate. So if you like to have a 16:9 aspect ratio without much loss in quality compared to a 1944p resolution, you always will have the option of switching to a 1440p resolution, and this video quality too looks impressive and equally good enough as to what I showed you under the 1944p 4:3 aspect ratio video quality. The next sample is again from the front camera, so this is the 1080p Full HD resolution without HDR, and this records in 60 frames per second and not 30 frames per second. So if you like to save some even more space and get a really smooth footage, you have this option of switching down to 1080p resolution with 60 fps, and this is truly good. Do note that at Full HD resolution this camera doesn't support HDR, and it's pretty evident from the video, but the advantage of dropping down to 1080p is that you get a 60 frames per second super smooth video. Of course, along with that, the file size also comes down to 150 MB per minute, and the bit rate also comes down to 13,000 kbps. So if you want the memory card to write the longest amount of time of videos, you can always switch back to 1080p resolution and you get some super smooth 60 fps footage. So here's the comparison of the front and the rear camera side by side. On top you can see the 1944p HDR 30 fps footage, and on the bottom you can see the rear camera 1080p 25 fps footage.
So this is just to show you the kind of quality which you're going to get from the front and the rear cameras. The rear camera does exhibit slightly higher contrast levels, and as said previously, the front camera does tend to have a slightly higher light balance. But the overall video quality from both front and the rear cameras is truly good for the price this camera comes at, and this should be your go-to camera if you're looking for that really good, really perfect camera under the price bracket of 15,000 rupees.
And finally, here is the parking mode, the time-lapse video recording from both front and the rear cameras. So this is the kind of video footage which you're going to get once you hardwire the camera and enable time-lapse monitoring. I think this parking mode, this specific time-lapse monitoring mode is pretty much very useful, and the camera records time-lapse recording from both front and the rear cameras, providing you important video evidence of all the things that have happened once you have parked your car. This camera is also able to record event-based videos such as collision detection under parking mode. So the technical details of the time-lapse recording has been provided on the screen. You can take a look at it for your reference. So if you do purchase the hardwiring kit for the 70mai A510, it's definitely going to be an all-in-one package. So what do you think now? Is the 70mai A510 the right dash camera for you? Well, I think considering the price bracket this dashcam comes in and the kind of quality specifically the front camera provides for you, along with the goodness of the STARVIS-2 sensor, this is definitely a must-buy dashcam. And if you don't want to miss the chance of buying it, the link to purchase it is given right down below in the description. Just head down, click on the description and buy it immediately. Also, you can buy some additional accessories to enhance your experience of the dashcam, such as the CPL filter and the Hardwire Kit. The links to those will also be given in the description below. So guys, this was the extensive and exhaustive video on the 70mai A510, and I want you guys to tell me how you found this video to be. Was this helpful, and was this detailed enough to cater to all your questions and all your queries? And in spite of watching this video, if you still have any doubts, you can always write that down in the comments. I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. And if this video has helped you out in making the right purchase decision, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button. Also, don't forget to follow me on my Facebook, Insta and the WhatsApp page. The links to those is also given in the description below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.